Welcome back, yet again adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS here. In the last episode, Takumi was basically forced into Gigantes by none other than Daisuke Mizumi, all for the purpose of actually getting him to see Fez in person. And even Takumi had to admit that he was incredibly captivated despite being in such a crowded area. But even more telling was the lyrics of her third song, which of course were already posted on @channel by the occult board, and which seem to have certain connotations which relate entirely to the third New Gen murder. But then, right as Takumi Nishijo was about to leave, FaZe actually looked up at the audience and noticed Takumi with her soul-gazing eyes. Which obviously brings us to the present. It wasn't merely a matter of her looking in my general direction or of our eyes meeting for a single second. Fez was clearly looking at me, steadily, staring fixedly, as though she were confirming my existence, as though she was searching for something inside of me. Our soul, perhaps? Or maybe Takumi's soul. Her gaze was extraordinarily searing and, for some reason, sorrowful. As I remained unable to tear my eyes away from her, she descended from the stage into the midst of the spectators. The other Phantasm members resumed playing, and the audience is gearing up again with their enthusiasm. But Fez didn't sing. Swaying as she wandered through the audience, she languorously stripped off her top, exposing her sexy shoulders. The quiet fans became agitated with excitement again. All of them raised their fists and started jumping wildly. They made the floor shake as if an earthquake were taking place. Yeah, things are starting to get strange again here in ChäoS Head. Yet no one attempted to touch Fez, as though they were displaying their awe of a sacred being under ordinary circumstances. If a star as compellingly charismatic as her went down among her fans, you'd expect them to mob her. But apparently that isn't the case. As a part of an unspoken agreement, a single rule, and of their own accord, Phantasm fanboys forbade themselves to make contact with Fez's body. Even so, they felt her existence come very near to them. They tasted the scent of her sweat. They touched the same air as her. Those things granted her believers the highest possible joy. Perhaps she put on this kind of performance every time, or so I thought, but I doubted my eyes when I caught sight of Fez's next move. She had casually started undoing the belt at her waist. When she tossed it away, her fanboys reached out all at once, each fighting to make it theirs. Well, that's one way to make a possession, I suppose. Casting a sidelong glance at them, Fez unfastened her miniskirt. It fell to her ankles with a rustle. Her suggestive black underwear came into view, and she's still holding that microphone stand sword. Prop, whatever it is. Fez seemed completely unbothered by the fact that her cultists were seeing her in a state of indecency. Calling the audience members cultists is probably not incorrect, however, never mind. Had she gotten high on the ambience? Or was this another type of performance? Or else pure exhibitionism? I didn't know, but everything about her was such a turn-on that my eyes became glued to her. Fez looked at me again. She smiled enticingly.
おい、こっち来るぞ。
Her gaze unmoving, Fez only looked at me. She approached gradually, as though she had fixed her aim on me. And having come right up to me, she's laughing. Her sweet sigh grazed my face, and much in the same way as a lover would. Perhaps this is some kind of ritual. Well, once again things have definitely taken a turn for the bizarre. She embraced me. Her skin was damp with sweat. Her scent and her warmth were so alluring, I almost had vertigo. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, pressing tight against my body. It was said that singing could be exhausting, but right now her panting passed from her skin to mine, being transmitted to me directly. Her arms clenched tight around my back. Her nails ate into the nape of my neck. Her thighs became entangled with my legs. I trembled all over, as if electricity had run through me. I could neither push her away, nor return her embrace. All I could do was stand stock still, eyes wide. The fans cheered again. This time, it sounded as if they were close to screaming. The other members of Phantasm began playing more violently. Shouts of Fez's name reverberated back and forth in the small clubs. Voices crying, "Do it, do it," began to appear in the mix more and more often. What did they mean when they said to do it? I was completely at a loss. Fez, still holding me, said nothing. And there are many memes that I could put in here, but that would definitely be beneath me. That would actually be in very, very poor taste. So I'm not going to do that, just so you know. Seeking help, I looked for Mizumi-kun, who was either probably nowhere to be found or is probably standing right next to Takumi. I was startled to find him sharing a deep kiss with a female spectator I'd never seen before. Well, that's probably not surprising given his personality. No, Mizumi-kun wasn't the only one. The other cultists, male and female alike, were throwing away their clothes and embracing each other, nude and kissing. Some had already begun to take things to their natural conclusion. Pandemonium, debauchery, sultry voices, and cheering, the lewd sound of flesh rubbing up against flesh, born by Phantasm's music. These were what took over the venue. Something tells me that we've entered the realm of Slanesh, the dark prince of pleasure at this point. For those of you who don't know who Slanesh is, that's probably for the best. And they're still cheering, apparently. A black mass. I understood at last. This was an obscene banquet held by the demon called Fez, swearing loyalty to her and the devil. Excuse me for that sneeze. Swearing loyalty to her and the devil, her believers became lost in their orgy. Hopefully demonettes don't start appearing out of nowhere and swerving their way throughout the crowd, because then that would truly be a black mass. And I'm about to sneeze again. some reason, I'm sneezing quite often. Sorry for that. And today I was the demon's living sacrifice. Fez had chosen me as her partner. This was what it meant to go to one of Phantasm's shows. I too was getting swallowed up by the atmosphere. My head felt I felt my head start to go foggy. Anticipation for and dread towards what would happen from here on out. A sense of superiority and the rapture that came from having been chosen by Fez. It felt like I was about to go crazy. There's that quiet laughing again. Fez laughed, again, close to my ear. I heard her clearly despite the fact that we were being swamped in the midst of so many overflowing sounds. She had such a sexy voice. Merely hearing it, I thought I might faint. But Fez tempted me further towards the abyss of pleasure. She softly bent down on my earlobe, blew her breath into my ear, and whispered.
その目、誰の目？
Well, that was certainly interesting, but now now it seems we're somewhere else. When I came to myself, I was alone, walking slowly along the rooftop, along some rooftop somewhere. The wind was terribly strong, bringing a slanting rain that hit me as it blew in. There's very grey clouds on the horizon. Strangely, though, I didn't feel cold. I recognized this place. I felt like I've been here many times before. That's right, this fenced-in Spartan scenery belonged to the school roof of Suame Private Academy. I gazed at my surroundings. The rain made everything hazy and nigh impossible to see, as though the world itself were becoming misty. And there's Fez standing before us in a very interesting decoration of her Sume Academy uniform. Actually, that's not the word I'm looking for. But never mind. At the end of my line of sight, on the other side of the fence, was Fez. She stood there, soaking wet, facing me through the fence. She looked straight at me with the same eyes she had worn during the show. As I might have guessed, she held her saw-light mic in her right hand. The wind that blew up from below made her damp hair fly about tempestuously. Now that is very uh, unique vocabulary there, Takumi Nishijo. There was no doubt that she would fall if she lost even a tiny bit of balance. Falling from this height would mean an instantaneous death. Though I was only watching her, I went weak in the knees. Why exactly is Fez standing on the other side of the roof fence? But Fez stood there with beautiful posture and showed no sign of fear. Well, that's the lead singer of Phantasm for you. Again, with that sorrowful expression and that quiet demeanor, looking as if she were about to start crying any minute. Fez quietly extended her empty left hand towards me. That's probably not going to be a good idea. Let's fly together. It seemed almost as if she was silently tempting me. I couldn't say anything back to her. I didn't know what to do. Fez didn't speak either. This time she spread out both hands on either side, in the shape of someone being crucified. The wind and rain abruptly died down, leaving only the grey clouds. Or is it fog? Huh. Maybe there is no difference. I tried to say something, but my voice wouldn't come out. It couldn't come out. Fez's body slowly began to tilt backward. Everything turned in slow motion. I tried to somehow stretch out my hand to her. Probably not going to work, considering that we're on the wrong side of the fence. But my own movements went into slow motion as well, and all I could do was impatiently watch my arm gradually reach out in front of me. Besides, Fez had already closed her eyes. At last, she disappeared from my field of sight. Yeah, as you probably should already be able to tell if you've been following this Let's Play adventure thus far, that was the positive and negative delusions of Takumi Nishijo playing themselves out in stereo. As to why I didn't announce them this time, I thought I'd change things up a little bit, for good measure, and hopefully that will do the trick at giving the episode a little bit of mysticism. But now we're actually here to see just exactly what it is that Fez of Phantasm wants with Takumi Nishijo of Suume Academy. It wasn't merely a matter of her looking in my general direction or of our eyes meeting for a single second. Fez was clearly looking at me, steadily, staring fixedly, as though she were confirming my existence, as though she were searching for something inside me. Her gaze was extraordinarily searing, and for some reason, sorrowful. And of course, we cannot face that gaze. Before I realized what I was doing, I'd come flying outside. Seems like the haunting atmosphere and the audience participation was too much for Takumi's nerve. I descended the outdoor stairs from Gigante's, or down from Gigante's, and crouched on the lowest step. I tried to put my breathing in order, but it didn't go too well, as I thought it had been a mistake to go inside. I was incredibly agitated. My body had gone damp with sweat. Perhaps Fez's gaze is God's gaze, but we don't have any real means of actually proving that, however.
おい、どうしたんだよ、タク。いきなり飛び出して。
Wait, are you telling me that you've been standing out here all this time, Daisuke? You didn't actually go back inside? Oh, no. Mizumi-kun came chasing after me. He sounded dissatisfied, so he did go inside. Of course,
もう出ちまうのかよ。これからさらに盛り上がりそうだったのに。
as I was going to say, that actually makes sense considering the fact that he was the one who dragged Takumi inside in the first place. Of course, Takumi does not have the psychological fortitude to continue this covert operation.
で、どうだよ、フェスは。可愛かったろ。
Kawaii is hardly the appellation I would use. I shook my head without looking up, and if you refer to her as Moe, I swear, Daisuke. I didn't care about that kind of thing. She was certainly cute, but I didn't have any interest in the third dimension. More importantly, those lyrics. I managed to catch every word of them, but it seemed to me that they could only be referring to the staking incident. Wasn't a certainty, of course. However, it's probably only a matter of time before the police actually start drawing those conclusions as well. But Fez must know something about it. I had that sense, though in the end I hadn't found out whether or not she was the demon girl's underling. Well, on that front we have successfully failed. Go team. Beneath the red-stained full moon, the girl looked back. And she had looked at me. That had been neither an illusion nor some kind of mistake on my part. It seems that Fez does actually have a vested interest in Takumi Nishijo, though to what end, even I cannot say. I was positive that Fez had been looking at me. What could the emotions residing in her eyes have signified? Why had she seemed so heart-rendingly sad? I don't know. Maybe it would have been best to ask Fez herself, but I couldn't. Entering that club again and speaking to Fez, both were impossible for me.
もう二度と来るもんか。
Looks like this was a one-time gig. Squeezing my voice out in a mutter, I wiped the sweat off my forehead. And so we depart. Back to the safety of Takumi's base. I started up Insu soon after coming back home from the Phantasm content. The halfway eaten potato chips I had nearby were already soggy, but it didn't bother me. They turned out to be surprisingly edible. Well, they better be if they're sour cream and chives, or at the very least salt and vinegar. But anyway, that is going to be it for this episode of Let's Play Chaos Head. And when we return, adventurers, hopefully Takumi can get his thoughts in order and figure out just how exactly to proceed from here on out. As always, until next we meet.